Disclaimer: the following program is designed to offend, provoke, and challenge your religious sensibilities. It contains content that will likely offend anyone who holds religion sacred. This is for those with thick skin or a taste for the harsh truth. If you're easily offended or cherish your religious views, please turn off now. Viewer discretion is strongly advised. You have been warned. Welcome back to Troll the Verse, where we tear through biblical messes one chapter at a time, and today we've got Samson, Israel's worst decision maker, barreling straight into his first public catastrophe in Judges 14. Last time, we met his parents, who got a surprise divine pregnancy announcement and immediately found themselves raising a Nazirite son who was supposed to begin delivering Israel. Instead of being a wise and disciplined leader, he's about to prove he has the self-control of a child and the foresight of a brick. So yeah, Samson is officially off to the worst start imaginable, and it's only going to get worse. Before we jump in, let's talk about your life choices. You're already here watching a video mocking Bible stories, which means you either love it, hate watch it, or stumbled in by accident and are now questioning everything. Either way, you might as well hit like, drop a comment, and subscribe, because whether you agree or not, we both know you're coming back. Don't fight it. Accept your fate and lack of free will. Now, let's get into this disaster. All right, we're barely into the chapter, and Samson is already proving he has the self-control of a child in a candy store. He strolls into enemy territory, sees a Philistine woman, and immediately decides she's the one. Not because of her personality, intelligence, or literally anything else, just, I saw her, I want her. That's it. His parents, somehow expecting their chosen son to have at least one functioning brain cell, point out that maybe marrying the enemy isn't a great idea. Samson's response? Nope, she looks good, get her. This is the guy God supposedly handpicked for the job. Notice who's missing from this entire conversation? The woman. She's just a prize at a carnival booth. For all we know, she has no idea this is even happening. But hey, minor detail though. I mean, who needs consent when you're Samson? And speaking of his parents, these are the same people who got a prophecy that their son would begin to deliver Israel from the Philistines. You'd think that would mean he'd have some kind of plan, some sense of leadership, maybe even a little strategy. Instead, he's making life decisions like a reckless teenager. This is the hero of Israel. But no need to worry, the writer tacks on some justification with his father and mother have not known that from Jehovah it is. Oh, of course. God's big strategy is to use Samson's inability to think past his own urges as a tool to take down the Philistines. This is the plan. Just let the most reckless man alive ruin his own life and hope it somehow causes problems for the enemy. Not exactly what you'd call brilliance. And we can't ignore the last phrase here, a meeting he is seeking of the Philistines. So God's grand strategy is to put Samson in a situation where something might happen. Kind of seems like a big master plan. Just throw Samson at the Philistines and hope for the best. So on the way to claim his Philistine bride, Samson takes a scenic stroll through a vineyard, which he's not even supposed to be near. Nazirites are forbidden from touching grapes in any form, but here's Samson treating sacred vows like optional guidelines. And his parents, they're right there, walking beside him, watching their holy son casually violate the most basic terms of his calling. Stunning spiritual leadership. Then, out of nowhere, a lion attacks, and now the comedy really starts. His parents are supposedly with him, so where are they? Did they just keep walking? Were they too busy admiring the vineyard to notice their son being mauled? Full-grown lion, full volume roar, and according to this, no one sees or hears a thing. But no worries, Samson channels the spirit of Jehovah and immediately rips the lion apart with his bare hands. No struggle, no weapon, no injury, just spontaneous divine murder delivered with zero context. The text even says he tore it apart as the rending of a kid. And I've got questions. Who is out here ripping goats in half with their hands like that's a regular Tuesday? Is that a thing people did? Why is that a known reference point? Anyway, Samson doesn't say a word about it. He kills a lion with his bare hands. Nothing. Doesn't tell his parents, doesn't brag, just keeps walking like he didn't just snap a predator in half. Silent, casual homicide. Maybe he figured they wouldn't care, or maybe they were still off sniffing grapes. Cut to a few days later, he heads back to claim his bride and takes a detour to revisit the lion's corpse. Because I guess revisiting rotting animal carcasses is a hobby now. Most people kill an animal and move on. Not Samson, though. He turns aside specifically to go look at the decaying body like it's a monument to his masculinity. And of course, the Bible escalates because just going to visit the corpse and checking on it again wasn't weird enough. He finds a beehive inside the dead lion. Now, let's just stop here. This is biologically impossible. Bees do not set up shop in rotting flesh. They require dry, clean, protected areas, not maggot-infested meat husks. Even if the lion dried out, which would literally take weeks, it would still be full of decay and bacteria. But hey, this is Bible biology, where logic comes to completely effing die. And what does Samson do? No hesitation, no curiosity, no, wow, that's weird. He just digs right in like it's the most natural thing in the world. Oh, look, corpse honey, score. No utensils, no concern, just barehanded, scooping from a lion's definitely still bloody ribcage. And this is where it goes from gross to defiling. Numbers 6, verse 6 says, near a dead person he doth not go. It's pretty straightforward here. Don't touch corpses. It doesn't say, not unless there's honey inside. Now, sure, that says dead person, but don't get clever in my comments with the technicalities. This is a Nazirite vow, not a courtroom drama. The entire point is ritual purity, and in the Bible, death equals defilement, period. Leviticus already says touching animal carcasses makes you unclean, and Nazirites were supposed to be even stricter. Samson touches the carcass. He eats from it. He doesn't accidentally graze against it or stumble over it. He sticks his hand in the thing and scoops out honey. That's not just breaking the vow. It's doing it on purpose. With dessert, touching a carcass, unclean. Eating from it, definitely still unclean. Doing both while supposedly empowered by God's Spirit, absolutely unhinged. But Samson doesn't care. He touches the carcass, eats from it, and then, icing on the rotting cake, brings some back for his parents. Doesn't tell them where it came from, just feeds them corpse honey with a smile and lets them unknowingly join in the violation. If there's a way to weaponize spiritual defilement, Samson just invented it. Feeding it to your parents without telling them, beyond unclean and wildly unethical. And let's not skip the visual here. He's walking down the road with honey-covered hands, sticky arms, probably sweating like crazy, dripping death honey down his elbows like it's normal. That's your judge of Israel, a bear-sized man covered in corpse juice. And what does God do? Absolutely nothing. No rebuke, no divine correction, no, hey, maybe don't eat honey out of dead animals, just silence. At this point, Samson has violated his Nazirite vow by touching a corpse, eaten from it, making himself unclean, tricked his parents into breaking the law too, kept the whole thing secret, proving he knows it's wrong, and eventually turns it into a riddle at his wedding like the whole thing was just a joke. And still, God says nothing. Samson goes full-on corpse buffet. No problem, let's give him more power. This isn't a holy man, it's a walking disaster. Samson's not breaking the rules by accident. He's doing it on purpose, and somehow he's still the chosen one. Welcome to divine favoritism at its absolute dumbest. And before anyone tries to hand-wave this as allegory, because I had some fool break into my comments earlier saying it's all allegory, you're dumb. So what exactly is this supposed to symbolize? Some say the lion is Satan, some say it's sin, some say the honey is spiritual victory. Some even claim Samson is a Jesus prototype. Yeah, because nothing screams Christ-like behavior like licking honey out of rotting animal corpses and lying to your family. And my personal favorite, that God was just teaching us how sweet things can come from death. That's truly beautiful, thank you. If your theology involves corpse honey and secret defilement as divine lessons, maybe it's time to reconsider your metaphors. If this is a metaphor, it's the worst object lesson in religious history. You've got a holy man deliberately defiling himself, tricking his parents, and walking around eating bee puke out of a corpse, and somehow that's supposed to teach us something profound. So no. You don't get to skip the biology and logic and then pretend the story still holds up because it's symbolic. If this was an allegory, then somebody needs to explain what exactly the corpse honey of wisdom is supposed to be, and why God's Spirit keeps showing up just to sponsor chaos. If your metaphor requires breaking every natural law and ethical standard, it's not deep, it's just garbage nonsense that you make up. And this is the only time I'm going to address the allegory claim, because if you're going to call this an allegory, which by definition can be twisted into 1,000 contradictory meanings, then I get to interpret it however I want to. So maybe this isn't about Samson at all. Maybe the lion represents toxic masculinity, the bees are late-stage capitalism, and the honey is unearned privilege harvested from decaying systems of power. Maybe the real moral is colonize death and you'll find sweetness. Or maybe, just maybe, it's a story about a guy eating honey out of a corpse because the Bible thought that was inspirational. Because what better way to inspire faith than watching your prophet double fist honey from a ribcage? If your sacred text can mean literally anything, then it ends up meaning absolutely nothing. You can't build theology on a story that disintegrates the second someone asks, wait, why are the bees inside a dead lion? I'm not saying the Bible has no allegory. I'm just saying that not everything stupid gets to hide behind that special label you guys love to throw on it because something specific offends you in the text. So now we move on to Samson's wedding banquet. And if you thought his decision-making couldn't get worse, right out of the gate, we've got yet another Nazirite violation. Samson, the guy who isn't even supposed to be near vineyards, throws a week-long drinking feast because that's what all good Nazirites do, right? The text doesn't explicitly say he drank, but it does say he made a banquet because, quote, so the young men do. This isn't some solemn tea party. This is a standard 7-day Philistine-style bash, which was absolutely alcohol-soaked. And let's be honest, if you're not drinking, why are you hosting this thing in the first place? Then we get to the planning of it. The verse says his father went down to the woman, not Samson. So even though Samson was the one who wanted this marriage, it's his daddy doing all the negotiating. Because Samson can rip apart lions and defile Nazirite vows left and right, but he still needs daddy to plan his wedding. Fantastic leadership all around. Now when they see him, they take 30 companions and they are with him. That's all it says. No request, no invitation, no personal friends mentioned, just they assign him 30 guys. The text doesn't say who they are, but it sure doesn't sound like Samson picked them. He shows up and suddenly he's got 30 Philistine men hanging out with him. Whether it's because he had no friends there or because the locals didn't trust him, we don't know. What we do know is this: these weren't groomsmen. These were assigned companions. And if you're wondering why a wedding guest needs to be assigned company, maybe the answer is because nobody wanted to sit next to him voluntarily. And then comes the riddle. Because nothing says celebration of marriage like a high-stakes logic puzzle based on your private corpse-eating honey session. Samson lays down the terms, solve the riddle in 7 days, and he gives them 30 linen shirts and 30 changes of garments. Fail, and they owe him the same. Seems simple, right? Except he's gambling with stuff he probably doesn't own. What's he gonna do if they win? Break into a tailor shop? Borrow from 30 Israelites? He doesn't have this wardrobe. He just assumes he'll win and collect it all like some holy game show host. But the riddle itself is the real joke. Out of the eater came forth meat, and out of the strong came forth sweetness. Yeah, great. Too bad the only correct answer requires knowing that bees set up shop in a lion carcass, something no one else witnessed, and that, again, violated his Nazirite vow. He broke the law, scooped dessert out of a dead animal, and now he's making a party game out of it. What a guy. And here's the last lines of these verses. They were not able to declare the riddle in 3 days. So the 7-day wedding celebration lasts a full week, but after just 3 days, things are already going south. These Philistines are stumped, they're frustrated, and the whole event is turning into a contest of petty mind games instead of a wedding. Samson could have just smiled, toasted some wine, which he shouldn't even be near, and enjoyed his ceremony. But no, he needed to weaponize his own unclean behavior into a public challenge. Because when it comes to holy vows, broken oaths, and wedding hospitality, Samson's motto is apparently, why not make things even worse? And now Samson's wedding becomes a hostage situation. The Philistine groomsmen, who were supposed to be his companions, go straight to his wife and threaten to burn her and her entire family alive if she doesn't get the answer. It's not a mild threat or some idle warning. They flat out say, give us the riddle or we torch you. That's how absurdly brutal these people are. They skip from mild annoyance to potential mass murder in one breath over clothes, which tells you everything you need to know about their brand of conflict resolution. And we can't overlook why they're mad. Samson set them up to fail with an impossible riddle, then just sat back to watch chaos unfold. Now his own wife is at risk of being burned alive, which is completely his doing. Even better, the Philistines don't ask nicely. They accuse her of helping Samson scam them, so they're not just threatening her, they think she's conning them too. But she takes their side anyway. Instead of telling Samson that her life's in danger, she goes for the guilt trip. She cries and accuses him of hating her. Never mind that she's literally under threat of being burned. Her top complaint is he didn't share the riddle. And Samson, ever the romantic, responds with, "I didn't even tell my parents, why should I tell you? Because that's how you reassure your new wife during a crisis." And this isn't a quick argument. She cries and whines about it for the rest of the wedding. A solid week of sobbing and emotional pressure. Eventually, Samson capes. Forget loyalty or logic, he just can't stand constant tears. That's how easy it is to manipulate him. And here's where the timeline collapses on itself. Verse 15 says the Philistines threaten her on the seventh day. Then verse 17 says she weeps for the 7 days of the banquet, and he tells her on the seventh day. So which is it? Did she start crying that day, or has she been crying all week? The text can't seem to decide. It tries to make her relentless and last-minute manipulative at the same time, and in doing so, it breaks its own continuity. You can't start something on the seventh day and also have done it for 7 days. That's not allegory, that's just bad editing. And completely unsurprisingly, because she's literally the enemy, the second she learns the answer, she spills it to the Philistines. No hesitation. On the final day of the wedding, they waltz in and recite, "What is sweeter than honey and what's stronger than a lion?" They're mocking him. They want him to know. They beat him at his own rigged game. They don't just want the prize, they want to humiliate him, but they are about to regret it. Samson realizes immediately that his wife betrayed him and fires off a charming proverb, "Unless ye had plowed with my heifer, ye had not found out my riddle." So yes, he just publicly called his new wife a cow, but it's more than that. It implies she's a possession for him to plow, and that the Philistines got to use her too. It's a blatant insult pointing to sexual control, and it perfectly illustrates how he views and treats women. Betting's barely over and he's already humiliating her. Not a great start. And we can't ignore that this is all Samson's own doing. He made a bet with clothes he didn't have, gave them a rigged riddle, and ignored every obvious red flag. Now he's humiliated at his own wedding and is about to drag everyone else down with him. Suddenly, Samson's embarrassment morphs into a murder spree. He lost the bet, got outsmarted, and insulted, so he decides the logical move is to kill 30 strangers. Not even the groomsmen who tricked him, just 30 random men in Ashkelon who probably had no clue what was going on. They all die because Samson is ticked off about a riddle. And we can't ignore how he does it. The text says, "The Spirit of Jehovah prospereth over him." That means God directly empowers him to commit mass murder. It's not a case of God correcting him or telling him to stop. He's fueling the carnage. Samson's out here killing people over a personal bet. It's one thing for Samson to be destructive on his own. It's another when God is actively backing him up. That's the moral code we're dealing with. Then it gets worse. Samson strips the dead men, steals their clothes, and hands the blood-stained garments over to pay his gambling debt. There's zero shame, no cover-up. He just marches back and dumps reeking clothes on the Philistines. Nobody even asks, where did these come from? They just take them. I mean, I guess mass murder is a perfectly acceptable way to settle bets around these here parts. Obviously, he's also breaking the Nazirite vow again. Also, you have to touch a dead body to remove the clothes. This is a special level of petty. He could have just admitted defeat and tried to move on. Instead, he escalates it to killing random people over some shirts. And somehow, this is the guy designated to deliver Israel. Afterward, he doesn't stay for his wedding. Instead of dealing with his wife or the mess he made, he runs home to his parents like a sulking child. This is the biblical equivalent of flipping the table and rage quitting. He just killed 30 people, paid off the Philistines with stolen clothes, and stormed off. Did he think ignoring it would fix the situation? Then, the final kick in the nuts to Samson, his wife gets handed off to someone else, one of the very Philistines assigned to be Samson's friend. So let's recap. He demanded this woman, barely spoke to her, insulted her at the wedding, abandoned her, and she ends up with another guy. The whole marriage was pointless. And we're still not done, because Samson's revenge spree is just getting started. If this is God's idea of a hero, then Israel is beyond saving. Samson has managed to break every single one of his Nazirite vows, except for the haircut, and let's be honest, that's only a matter of time. But instead of consequences, God is just handing him more power, like an unhinged parent who refuses to discipline their child. And we're only getting started. Samson's revenge spree isn't even close to over, and things are about to spiral into even bigger disasters. This isn't a mighty judge of Israel. This is a walking catastrophe waiting to happen. If you thought this was bad, wait until he starts lighting things on fire and proving once and for all that he has the decision-making skills of King Saul consulting a dead prophet. So if watching this slow motion disaster entertains you even slightly, hit like, drop a comment, and subscribe. Let me know if you want to hear how the rest of this story unfolds, because whether you love it or hate it, I'm going to keep trashing the Bible. See you in the next episode of Troll the Verse.